In the name of God, merciful and compassionate. Amen. So we had decided to do a Midrash tonight. So my name was in the bulletin, but that wasn't quite accurate. So anyway.
You know, when I read this, something came to mind, and maybe you've never given much thought to this. But when Jesus teaches, he almost always, I can't think of a time when he doesn't mention three things. And they represent the core of spirituality in Israel. He talks about praying, fasting, and giving alms. Those three things are always there. And you know, that kind of got me thinking. I remember a book I had in seminary, which was fantastic. The title was The Economy of Jesus. And it talked about that first century economic situation where people were living in and trying to survive in. And when Jesus talks about these three things, when it comes to giving alms, he oftentimes mentions, give away your riches, get rid of them. And sometimes we read that and think, oh, well, maybe I should be struggling more, or maybe I really have to give a whole bunch of stuff away. In the economy of Jesus, in that first century, things looked very different. That does not sound to us the way it sounded to them. Because in Jesus' time, there were very few ways to get wealthy, very few. We didn't have high-tech industries where some brainchild makes you a boatload of money. We didn't have investments and all of that sort of thing. People were just living a hard-scrabble life. They might be a merchant and sell some wares. They might have a little farm. There wasn't a whole lot of different stuff they could do. And in those days, pretty much the only way someone would be wealthy is if they defrauded someone else or outright stole. That was the point that this book made. Being wealthy then made you suspect. And it was kind of considered, if you're a wealthy person, either you did the dishonest stuff or you are the heir of someone who did the dishonest stuff. So when Jesus says, give it away to the poor, give it back, he's trying to bring some justice into all of this. It doesn't read the same way to us nowadays. We don't have to defraud someone to get wealthy. But the message is still there. That, the poor you always have with you. It wasn't like, well, they're there. It was, no, you always have a responsibility to them. And that's why Jesus goes into those 3 points of Jewish spirituality so deeply, to remind you have to pay attention to all three.
So I've been thinking a lot about what I'm going to take on this Lent in terms of fasting and prayer and giving alms. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fast from CNN as much, or the news. Yeah, I have to, because every time I watch it, I get so angry and I don't like what the news is doing to my insides. The second thing is pray for our nation, pray for all of us. And the third thing is to give alms or whatever support I can to those in our country who are really, really hurting and are going to hurt even more than they already are hurting. So when I was in high school at all-girl Catholic school, the nuns would always say to us, oh, what are you going to give up? Somebody would say, oh, candy so I can lose weight, or oh, that cigarette I sneak out and back, or whatever it was. But I think we take things on in Lent. It's not a time to necessarily give something up unless it really hurts us, but or causes us some discomfort. But those are the things I'm going to take on in terms of fasting and prayer and almsgiving.
Well, I have a similar kind of take on that. I saw my spiritual director about 2 weeks ago, and he was asking me about my prayer life, and he knows it pretty well. And I said, well, Gordon, I say a little prayer when I wake up, and then I'll turn on the news for 20 minutes, and then I'll go have a longer prayer time. And when I pray, I'm just feeling so down. And he said, why don't you pray first before you listen to the news? Light bulbs go off, of course, because that was tainting my ability to focus on God in the moment. But it's funny when it makes me chuckle when you talk about kids giving up candy. I was raised in a huge Catholic church. I mean, we had hundreds of kids in the Sunday school. And every Lent, every one of us gave up candy. Now, there was a little candy store about a block away from the church. And finally, the owner called the pastor and said, would you please ask your kids to give up something else during Lent? I can barely pay my bills. So, and that was the first time I kind of learned it doesn't have to be candy. It
Or something like
has
that,
to be
yeah.
something different that I do.
Yeah.
And you know, there's a quote in this gospel today, when you pray, go into your room, close the door so your Father who sees in secret will see you. Do you have any idea why Jesus would have said that? I mean, if you pray, you're sitting on a park bench or you're standing there and praying, isn't that a witness to prayer? Why would Jesus say, go into your room and close the door? What do you think? Yeah.
I think to preserve the intimacy, the communication between you and God.
Preserve intimacy. So no distractions. Yep. Okay. Any other reason?
I was talking about the sort of showing off.
Yeah.
Of, the folks who are like out in the street, like, oh, whoa.
Woe is me. I'm fasting.
I'm fasting. So not to be like that.
Not to be like that. And I think another thing, something that occurred to me today was when we are alone praying, however we are alone is how we really are.
Yeah.
So it's like bring your real self to this prayer and none of this other stuff, because that just gets in the way. And when that thought struck me, I thought, oh, there's an insight I hadn't thought of before.
Right.
So what about you?
Yeah, what are you going to take on this Lent? What are you going to take on?
Or give
possibly?
up, if that's your preference.
Anybody? Well, you can say it in secret.
Substitute teacher for a Title I school, and it's the kids have some needs
Yeah.
that go beyond just math and reading and social studies. I'm going to see if I can extend myself to a little further for some of the kids who are raised to be
Awesome.
reach out to their families and connect with the school and see if they can
Oh, that's great.
get a little bit more root into their community.
That's great. Thank you for doing that. That's fabulous. Anybody else got something?
Or you can just think about it and
Yeah,
reflect
yeah,
on it.
Yeah.
Keep it in secret.
I am going to do my praying before I watch the news. So that's kind of what the angle I'm taking. But I'm going to watch the news a lot less too,
Yeah.
because it's damaging at times. Okay.
I'm thinking relinquishing control, not to try to have control over everything.
Okay.
And sicknesses, and when this person's hurting, what can I do? And letting it go.
Jill, let it go.
Yep.
Yep. Good for you. That's good. Any other inspirations? It's okay to give something up too, but.
At the noon service, one of our parishioners said she was going to try to give up being so judgmental,
Yeah.
which I think is very hard to do
It's very hard to do. Yeah.
at this point.
Absolutely.
And another parishioner said he was going to take on more protesting with his feet.
Yeah. Walking it off. Yeah. Yeah. So we just ask you to think creatively. It doesn't have to be something. If you do something that's excruciatingly difficult, you're not going to finish it anyway. Let's be honest, you're not. So just think of something that's doable but will impact you. And that's probably the best kind of thing you can do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we wish for you and pray for you to have a holy Lent.
Yeah. Okay.